Hello and welcome back to the channel on our continuing voyage to become better blues players. My name's Mark and this is the second lesson in our series on blues improvisation. So in the first lesson we looked at keeping time and playing at the same time as listening to the backing track and making sure that we're locked in with the backing track. This lesson we're going to look at playing over a shuffle, and we're going to look at the techniques that blues players would use in the improvisation to make their playing sound a little bit more interesting. So first of all, a shuffle. What's a shuffle? Well, in the previous lesson we played over what we call a straight 4/4. That means the music you would count it as going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, that's straight. That's kind of what we all know is just straight 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, just straight music, right? Blues generally doesn't play over, well, it does a little bit play over that beat, but more often than not, it plays over what we call a shuffle. And a shuffle goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And you notice those beats, they come in pairs, and 1 and 2 and 3, whereas a straight, each one's equally spaced. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So that's how you know the difference. If you want to hear the difference, probably the easiest way I can do it is if I just take like a regular A chord, this would be a straight. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And this would be a shuffle. I tend to think of them as a straight is more rock and roll and a shuffle is more blues. So what we're going to be doing in this lesson is playing over the shuffle, because that's, if you're going to be improvising over blues, chances are that's what you're going to be doing more often than not. So that's what we're going to be looking at. The backing track for this lesson is that shuffle beat. Again, it's just a one chord, it's just an A minor, but we're going to be playing over that. So the important thing when you get to play over the backing track is listen, because that beat's different. The beat falls in a different place, and so you got to get really tuned into that. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. Okay, so that's a shuffle. The other thing I said is that we're going to be looking at the techniques of blues players. So there's 3 particular techniques I want you to think about while you're playing. In the previous lesson, we were really just thinking about just being able to play in time and in tune, so locking in with the backing track, not really concentrating that much on what we're playing with our hands. Now we're actually going to start trying to make it more interesting. So the first technique I want you to think about including in your improvisation is a slide. Now a slide is basically when you literally slide up or down the neck from one note to the next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide from 5th fret D string to 7th fret D string. And when I get there, I'm going to just give it a little shake. So the important thing with a slide is it's the note you're aiming to land on, not the note that you're coming from. So it's where you're going to, not where you're coming from. That's the important thing. And I'm choosing that note there, 7th fret of the D string, because that's our root note, that's the A note. And if you remember the last lesson, what we're doing is we're always kind of playing around with our root notes. Our root notes are really important because that's where the note that's going to sound safest, sound most in tune. And so that's the note we can spend the most amount of time on. Okay, so that's a slide. And you can slide into many notes on in fact, any of the notes of the A minor pentatonic scale you can slide into. A minor pentatonic, or the pentatonic shape, is very good because you've got these notes 2 notes apart, 2 frets apart rather. So you can slide from one to the next quite easy. So you can do those kind of things. Okay, the next one I want you to think about is hammer-on and pull-off. So hammer-on is literally where you pluck one note with one finger, and then without picking it again, you hammer on. You literally slam your finger down on another note. So I'm going to use my index finger on the 5th fret of the D string. I'm going to pick that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slam my ring finger down on the 7th fret, and you get this. And just like a slide, you're focusing more on the note that you're going to end on, not the note you're starting on. That's more important. And so you kind of, I'm slamming it down there, and I would think of that as landing that hammer on the beat. And a pull-off is basically the same thing in reverse. You start with one note, and you literally pull your finger away from the string, giving it a little kind of almost picking it as you go. So you get this. Okay, and you can combine hammer-ons and pull-offs. Okay, so those are techniques which are used by blues players, but the biggest one, the one that you're probably going to want to focus most on, is a bend. So a bend is literally when you take a string and you physically push it across the fretboard until it becomes another note. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this note here and bend it up to the pitch of this one here. It's in there somewhere. Okay, and often when you get there, you give it a shake. It's easier when the backing music's going on because you can it's easier to hear when it gets in tune and when it lands on the target note. Okay, now it bends. Interesting thing with this is I think of blues bends as two different styles. There's bending into a note and there's bending away from a note. Now I did cover this in one of my other lessons, but it's worth repeating. Bending into a note is when you start at one note and you get to another one and you kind of hold it. You're going for a particular note. And like the slide, like the hammer-on, it's where you're ending that's important. So that's what I just did there. I'm taking this note here, I'm bending it to become this one here. So I'm focusing on getting the pitch of this one here. Okay? Now, you can also bend away from a note. So this is where you literally just start to bend a note slightly sharp and then immediately come off and hit another note. And a common one that I use for this is 5th fret of the G string. I'm going to bend that slightly sharp and then immediately come to 7th fret of the D string. Okay? And the amount that you pull that sharp, that's up to you. The more you do it, the dirtier it'll sound. The important thing with this is that when you start to pull that and it starts sounding dirty, you generally don't hold that because it's kind of sounding tense. You want to relieve that tension by coming off to the root notes. That's what I was doing there. Okay, so one thing I'd say about this is the way I think of this, certain notes sound better when they're bent than others. So if we think of our A minor pentatonic scale, this note here, you can bend it up a whole tone, it'll sound nice. You can bend it slightly sharp and then come off to this one here. So that would be like this. Okay, so it worked both as a bend up all the way and then as a bend slightly sharp coming off to the root note down here. This note here, don't bend that at all. It's going to sound awful if you try and bend it. This note here, you can do the same thing. You can bend it up a whole tone, you can bend it slightly sharp and come off to the 5th fret of either the B or the top E. So bend it up a whole tone, bend it slightly sharp and come off to top E. Okay, so you're getting a difference between those whole bends and those just like little dirty bends as well. This note here, again, you can bend it up a whole tone or you can just kind of bend it a little dirty as well if you want. This note here, you can pull that slightly sharp, but immediately come off to this one here. So that's G string immediately coming off to D string. Okay, and so I kind of, with me, the way I did this when I started playing is I kind of got those little moves under my fingers. Which notes sound good when they bend, which ones you not bother bending because they kind of don't sound, they don't really work if you bend them. So kind of getting all that together, think about how a blues player would play a little phrase. So I'm going to play the simplest little phrase I can think of. I'm basically going to walk down to my root note. So my root note is here, 7th fret of the D string. And I'm going to just walk down the pentatonic, but I'm going to start at this 5th fret of the B string. So I'm going to play this. Okay, really simple lick, 4 notes, just walking straight down a pentatonic scale, nothing fancy going on. Now, a blues player might play that phrase, but they wouldn't play it like that. What they'd want to do is make those notes sound interesting. So instead of just playing them straight and boring like this, what a blues player might do is play this note here by bending to it from this one here. So you bend up, then you play this one, and then to play this note here, probably going to drag it slightly sharp before coming off to this one here, and maybe sliding into. Okay, so this little phrase, if you're going to play it like a blues player, probably play it more like this. Okay, something like that. As I say, I've taught that idea before on previous videos, but it bears repeating because it's using those techniques, the hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, etc. How are you going to get those into your playing to take a simple little lick and make it sound more bluesy? Okay, so on with the example now. I'm going to play over the backing track, then we'll come back and at the end of the video, the backing track will play so you can grab your guitar and you can try and use these ideas and these techniques to solo over the same backing track that you're about to see me play over. So I'm going to be concentrating on 5 things over this backing track. First of all, it's a shuffle. So feeling that a 1, a 2, a 3 beat. That's the first thing, that's key. Remember the last lesson we did? The first thing you got to do is play in time and in tune. So you want to make sure that you are in time by feeling that beat, and then you can get more adventurous. Okay, so that's the first thing, playing over the shuffle. Second one is I'm going to be using slides to slide into notes. The third one is I'm going to be using hammer-ons and pull-offs to make the notes sound a little bit more interesting. And the fourth thing is I'm going to be bending notes as well to try and make those sound more bluesy and like a blues player would play. And then the fifth thing that I'm going to be doing in this solo is I'm actually going to be leaving spaces. I'm not going to be just constantly playing like just with the pick and just constantly playing. I'm going to play a little phrase and then take a breather, and then play another phrase and then take a breather, and so on. And that's the way musicians tend to do it. It's like speaking. You don't just robotically just continue on and on and on. You make a phrase, you pause, you say another phrase, you give another pause for emphasis, you say something else, you say something else, you emphasize something, you pause, and then you start again. And it's kind of the same way. Playing guitar, it's like talking. You're trying to communicate, and it's the same thing, I find. You play a phrase, pause, play another phrase. And so leaving those spaces, don't be afraid to do that. It gives you time to think, and it also emphasizes what you've played. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the backing track up. You're going to hear me play over this, and then we'll come back on the other side and you can play over it yourself. Okay, so now it's your turn. Grab your guitar, we're playing A minor pentatonic, which I taught in the previous lesson. We're not doing anything fancy, the backing track is just a 1 chord, A minor chord all the way through, but to that shuffle beat, so you're going to feel the beat, make sure you're in time, bap, 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 bap. With that, play over it, A minor pentatonic, focus on your root notes as we learned in the previous lesson, and then focus on those 5 things from this lesson. We're playing over a shuffle, so make sure you can feel that beat and you're in time with it. You're going to think about sliding between notes. You're going to think about hammering on and pulling off to notes. You're going to think about bending into notes and bending away from notes. And finally, the 5th thing is think about making a phrase, leaving a space, play another phrase, leave a space, play another phrase. Okay, so with that, I will leave you at the backing track, and then I'll see you next time when we're going to take things even further.